Hi everyone, hope you've had a good week so far. So we are going to be doing our drawings, or kind of thinking about keeping a sketchbook this week and next week. So as part of that process, it's really important that we're thinking about a theme or an idea in mind, because that's basically the development process as part of a sketchbook. So this is something that we would get our GCSE students and our A-level students to think about when keeping a sketchbook, is how that idea or that theme has developed and shown through different media. And that you can take this idea more personally and have it as a visual diary to what you do with your own work as well. Okay, I've brought up some paper towel. I have no idea where I put that. Anyway, oh, there it is. It's under there. So I've printed out my images that I've sent you guys of the different seed heads. I thought that would be interesting because it's nature. Obviously, if we can't access those images, then do feel free to use some images of your own, whether that's some sort of dried flowers or your own natural form objects, that's fine. But for this purpose, I thought it'd just be helpful to show you working from an image rather than something directly in front of me. So it's up to you if you've actually got poppy heads or some other dried flowers and things, you could use those too. I'm just going to move those out of the way slightly. So I've got my sketchbook landscape. That's just going to allow me a little bit more space to put on my different versions of the poppy heads. And the reason that I'm just going to focus on the poppy heads is because on here we've got different viewpoints. So I've got a really lovely side shot of the poppy head here. I've got one here where you can kind of see right at the top, so it's different angles. This one is a collection, so also quite nice because again you've got different viewpoints and different angles. So keeping a sketchbook isn't just drawing an object and saying, right, that's it, done, like I finished with that. It's actually looking at that one object several times and looking at it from different angles. So let's start off with I think this would be really nice, this one, just using a fine liner. So let's just start off with that. And then I was thinking we could do some of this one maybe using pencil. And, we could actually select one of these and actually have a go with using a little bit of watercolour. So we're going to go through the motions of doing almost 3 different quite quick drawings, because it's a sketch. It should be quite quick if you were out and about doing this. And then next week, we'll have a go at doing, some more details. Where that image has gone, oh, there it is, of the other seed heads that I've got here, and doing other techniques or kind of similar ones on our sketchbook. Okay, so let's start with this seed head here of our poppy. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight in with my fine liner. I'm not going to worry about doing it in pencil first. And the reason for that, if you remember, is when we're using our fine liner straight away, it's about helping us to develop our confidence with that line and with those marks. So if you go wrong with this, don't worry about it. You can, annotate that. You can write about it. You can keep practicing it. If you want to just go, right, I'm just going to really focus on just this one seed head and repeat that process with just fine liner, then you can do that too. So it really is kind of your piece of work, but it'd be really lovely to see what you guys come up with. So I'm going to start off with just drawing quite loosely this kind of circular shape. Notice I'm doing it in the corner here. I'm not doing it right slap bang in the middle. So I'm almost going to show like this visual journey of the seed head, developing and changing as it kind of goes through. So you could start it from this corner as well, it doesn't matter. So pick a side, and then I'm just going to follow the kind of lines that I can see. So I can see this sort of star effect. So I'm just going to loosely put that on. That's sort of coming across. And when you've got this effect, it's the way it's sort of flipping up. I want to almost make that 3D. So I'm showing that line across and then this hump in the on top of it. And that's sort of coming out. So I'm just using my other hand, if you notice here, just to guide me loosely as to where things should go. And kind of gone a bit far in on that bit. So let's just, so I'm doing it quite lightly initially. When I say lightly, I'm sort of being quite loose. Okay, so I've got that shape in a good place. I'm just going to put in some detail, so these kind of white lines. And you know, if this was a GCSE project or an A level, and eventually kind of thinking, you know, this could be for your own work as well, especially if you're interested in this idea of drugs, because poppies have that link. So it's quite interesting just how something that is quite pure and quite natural could be then taken further as an idea. So, you know, this is why keeping a sketchbook is really helpful, because you could start off with something like this, or it could just be just as innocent as the shape in itself. But for me, as I'm drawing this, I'm thinking, obviously my back is hurting again, guys. Don't worry, I've got a heat patch on today. But I'm thinking, oh, it'd be really interesting to do a whole study maybe on flowers that are helping, or anti-inflammatory, or you know, natural pain relief and things like that. So hopefully when you kind of are doing your drawings as well, you might come up with some different ideas. And that's the whole premise behind this. And if you're not, if you're just like, Gemma, I'm just enjoying drawing the seed heads, and that's fine too. So I need to make that a little bit rounded, a bit bigger there on that side. And a lot of artists actually use fine liners and, you know, this very linear effect for seed heads. It has a really lovely quality to it. A lot of people have done stuff with clay, where they're doing prints. They're just really beautiful in this form, and not as complicated as obviously drawing the flower petals and things like that. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going to block in some of these darker areas, so I can use the fine liner to block in some of these areas. And just do some hatching. So hatching is just lines in one direction close to each other and slightly getting further apart. So putting all this lovely texture on there. So looking carefully, and some of them are sort of longer than others. Some of them are sort of kind of interconnected. This is quite nice just to focus on the simplicities of this lovely, simple shape. So I'm just putting all this block work in. And And you can use the change in the direction to allude to the way in which you can see the lines forming. And then you can do the same thing on the top as well of the flower. Just put some bits in there. Oh, I've got a little bit around that side as well. Let's just add that in. So this is really important when you're doing this because it's flaring out. So one movement fits all for every petal, if that makes sense. So every petal, I will make sure that that comes out in the same direction in which I've drawn it. And this is also great. You can see how the seed head would be brilliant in a lino print as well. If that is something that people would like me to do a lesson on, lino printing, that's something that I can definitely factor in, and I could get some kits available for you guys to buy. Just let me know in Facebook or emailing me or in the Zoom session afterwards. So again, you can make some of those areas a little bit darker at the base, just to highlight that it's more dense in that area. You could also add some little sort of dots, because it's almost like some of these bits are a bit dotty in places. And just build that up. And by doing the dots, it still creates that shade and tone, which is what you kind of need, but it doesn't make it too dark. So this is where we're kind of calling on those mark making skills. The biggest thing about using a fine liner is about being brave and confident with your marks. Just gonna very quickly put in a suggestion. Sorry, my voice is going. And then when you kind of feel like you're happy, or you know, you don't want to do too much more to it there. She says as I carry on doing bits to it. There, because I know if I keep doing stuff to it, I'm going to end up ruining it. So when you feel happy with what you've done, oh, the last bit I'm going to do is the middle. Let's just do that quickly. Just do a couple of dots coming out, so one big spot and then a couple of dots. Okay, so that is your first part of that. Oh, what does it say? Garden gem. Yes, I know this blackbird is it's getting on my husband's nerves, the blackbird, but I think it's lovely. And he's very chatty out there. Thank you, Mary. I'm just reading your comments there. Right, so now we're going to go on to doing the next seed head, the other poppy head, and then we're going to go on to this one using some watercolour paints. So we've got a lovely poppy one done there. Again, what you can do if you want to, you can, write as a reminder it was fine liner, or you can, sometimes it's quite nice in a sketchbook as well as, like I was saying to you about finding a bit more information about the item that you're drawing or looking at. So in this case, obviously I'm looking at a poppy head, so I can write that down. If you wanted to look at a particular object, what object that was, what it means to you, the significance of that, sometimes it's really nice to have that as a reference, kind of with memory. So I don't know if it was an old object that had significance. Sometimes it's quite nice to write that down. So it's very much like a visual journey and a diary of what you're focusing on. Right, so next one. So I'm going to do my next one, let's say here. So I'm just going to get my pencil. I'm just going to start off. So it's obviously much easier with a pencil because I can really work on the shape. So it's quite circular, but it's much fatter in this kind of area. So I'm just going to bring that out. You've got this lovely kind of almost like trumpet effect and slightly wavy bottom. It's pretty amazing, nature, isn't it? So I'm just going to put in these little triangle shapes. So I'm just going to, first of all, if I do like an ellipse, which is a squash circle, that's just going to give me a bit of a guidance as to where those things need to be based. So if I just do it like this for now, and bring that over like so, and then you can start to put these in. So I'd recommend just rubbing out any lines first. The reason for that is that then I'm starting to be a little bit more refined. So once you're happy with that kind of shape, then you can start to be more refined. So yeah, so I'm just going to do this first bit here, and just looking, so that's sort of tucking up behind. That's really important. And notice as well, it curves. So that's coming up and then it's sort of disappearing. And then this line is carrying on to create this little overlay. So it's that line. That's why you get these folds, is that this line needs to connect. And then almost like disappearing. They almost look like bones or little mushrooms on top. So it's a sort of very definite kind of like vein coming through there. And actually could sort of go a bit further over into a point there. And this one you can see is coming straight up. So And then you've got all the details at the back there. They are like little kind of U shapes, but not quite as basic as that. So we're not just doing it like that. They kind of got this shape. But if that helps you to form the shape, then you can do that to start off with. So I'm just going to, that one's slightly tucked. If you can see, there's a little bit there. So I'm just going to put that in, coming behind, and then so yeah, each mark has a purpose, and that's really important that you're being careful with that process. So now I've got that done, I'm just going to add in this bottom area here, which is also kind of, it's not just circular, it's kind of slightly angular as well, and the base. And then I need to put in these kind of ribbed shapes, which are slightly coming in here. So I'm just going to start off by just drawing the one line, and try and get those matching up in the right places. And then you can see that there's like a change in colour almost halfway. So we want to start off by just initially showing that on one side it's that little bit darker of that line. So notice that I've added like another line in here, so I'm just going to add another one in there. And I'll just get that not quite so that way. So I notice how I'm holding my pencil. I'm holding the pencil halfway up, and it's sort of at a point it needs to be. So you can always work that in a little bit more to have a point to it. And kind of continuing that to come down. And the same thing on this side. So it's important that the shade happens on each side there, because this side is really dark. So you're continuing that theme of where the tone is happening. And then here as well. So this area is really dark. So remember our pressure points. So again, you can do this in your sketchbook next to it just to help you. So I'm pressing really hard. This is just a normal HB pencil. And I'm taking the pressure off. I'm getting a mid-tone, taking the pressure off again, and I'm getting a light tone. So you can practice that just at the top there to help you. And then just kind of bringing this down. And there's a little bit kind of bulbous bit here actually, so I could just add that in a little bit more, like that. So it's much better to almost start with your mid-tone, because you can always use the rubber to take away. It's much harder if you start with a really dark tone, just kind of to get in all the details and so on. So let's just get all this dark in here as well. So I know that's pretty dark, so I can confidently work with that. And then we've got the details on top of the boppy here. And then where you've got shadowing here, for example, I'm just going to do that quite lightly and then sort of come up in this sort of V shape. Again, you've got a very thin white line there, so you can almost, shade that in and do a very dark line on the other side to show that detail. So sometimes if it's not getting that contrast enough, it could just be a matter of adding a little bit more pressure to your picture. And making sure that you're shading it in the right direction. So I'm sort of keeping that flow of the movement that it's going in. And then, so then we can start to go, right, I'm going to add in some extra tone at the top here because it's a little bit darker. So you want to show that difference between this and that. So I'm just going to put that in a very light tone. Some folds, some little darker spots there at the top. And then you've almost got like really small white lines on each, under each bit. So what you can do is make sure that your pencil is really sharp. That's going to help a lot. So I'm being very naughty and shaving it, or sharpening it even, right on my desk. There's a helicopter going over you. It's all going on tonight with the blackbird and everything. But I've got a really fine point there, so I can just leave a white area or white line, so to speak, and I can do the same thing. And again, the shading, the shadowing is just happening on this side, so that's really important. And then taking the pressure off, and then there's sort of some other lines in there. And I can't actually see very much over here, so I'm kind of guessing a little bit. So I need to get that much darker because I can't really see the difference there. So you're trying to be as truthful as possible to the form and the shape in front of you. And then you've got this kind of very textured effect. So you could either have a go at just doing some kind of cross hatching very lightly, which is just helping create this kind of textured image. And I've got like a area here which is much lighter. So I just leave that almost. And try and link up with these longer bits that are sort of coming down. You know, as I'm doing this as well, I'm also thinking it would be quite interesting to do a continuous line drawing of this. So that might be something that I get us to do if we've got time today, and if not, then start with next lesson. So it's a bit slightly darker in that bit there. And then sort of keep working around. It's definitely darker in these areas. So don't be afraid to press a bit harder when you're feeling more confident about your shade and tone. Because what often happens is you'll do like a tonal drawing, and often it will end up looking kind of all one tone. So it's important to kind of take a step back and look and say to yourself, right, what do I need to do? And sort of linking that up. And then, you know, it's good to put in things like the dots that you can see as well. Let's get that a bit more sorted. So I'm just modifying here a little bit. Yeah, and I can put in some spots on here. Could make it a little bit darker in there. I'm getting these like little bits of curved lines, which is really important. Let's add that in a bit darker. So I'm just kind of going back over now and accentuating areas where it just seems a little bit darker. Don't forget, if I wanted to, you know, if it's a bit lighter there, I could just gently use my rubber and just add in some highlights as well. Because I've not really pressed that hard, I've just kind of worked with my mid-tone, so that's allowing me some freedom there to work with that. And then I've got all these little sort of textured dot bits, so I'm just going to add those over the top now. So that's, you know, the more I cluster those dots together, the more darker tone I'm creating, the more they're spread apart, the lighter that detail is coming through. And then I've just got it down here to do. So I'm just changing the angle in which I'm shading, because that's just going to help with perspective on there. And I kind of feel like that is potentially done on that one. Okay, so we've got that one and this one. So our last one is to take or choose one of these to look at, and there's obviously lots of beautiful colour and details on there. So I might just choose this one that I can see. So I'm going to draw it out in pencil first, and then I'm going to apply the watercolour to it. It would be nice actually as well. And again, I'm just thinking I'm conscious of time. What I might get us to do as well as next week is to do some freehand watercolour where we haven't actually sketched it out first, because that's quite good as well to explore with using the paintbrush in different sizes. So let's just take that. So it's kind of this sort of shape. And it's a bit more kind of square. And then again, you've kind of got like this squashed ellipse like this, but it's sort of wobbly. So you could almost follow that kind of wobble with bits that are kind of curved up and down. And let's just rub out the lines that we don't need. And just get the stem. Okay, so fun part now is using, if you're not already having fun, that is to get our watercolours. So I'm just going to move to get myself in a better situation here. So what I'm going to do first of all is just work with the light colour, which is the yellow. So I'm going to take some of the yellow. I'm working with a size 2 paintbrush here. If you've got a bigger, slightly bigger one, that's fine. I'm going to take some of the bright lemon yellow and some of the slightly darker yellow. I want this really watered down. I don't want it to be too thick going on there. So I'm also going to take my paper towel and just blot the excess so I can see that that's way too bright. So I'm also going to take some of the ochre and add a bit of that in there. So again, this comes back to our colour mixing. So if it's not working for you, if the colour's too bright or the wrong shade, then you can control that. Okay, that's better. It's getting lighter. The more water I add to it. So this is what I'm wanting. Okay, so I'm just going to start off by putting in this base coat of colour, and I'm being quite free. I'm kind of working with the shape there of what I can see. It can leave some bits white if you want to, but it's light enough where if I need to come back to that and add in some extra details, then I can. If you're working straight from the palette, it's going to be way too bright and too intense. So I'm just going to go over all of that because that's all very pale. The stalk actually is a bit yellow, so I'm just going to add a bit of that in there. I'm not going to do it on this bit though. I might just add a very, very light, very pale bit of yellow onto there. Right, so then I kind of want this lovely bluey purple. So I'm just going to take some of my blue. So this is the ultra marine blue. And again, quite watered down. I'm going to take some of the crimson, which is the more pinky red, and create this kind of lovely purple colour. Just blot it on there, that's fine. And I can start to see on my picture, let's get that a little bit further over, that it's this kind of bluey hue. Okay, so I'm just going to just put some suggestions. So leaving some bits which are white in between, a bit like we did at the top there. Just want to block that off slightly because I think I've done that a bit wrong. So let me just follow that in a bit more closer detail. Yeah, I have. So these are kind of quick little sketches really of ascertaining the colour. So, you know, if you were a botanical artist, it would be, if you're out there drawing in the field, kind of capturing the colours of what you see. Just blotting on the paper towel there slightly just to help. By blotting on the paper towel, it just ensures that it doesn't come running out too quickly. I'm going to take some of the orange, so the pre-made orange here, and I'm just going to add a bit of the yellow that I've already got. Just water that down a bit. Once again, I don't want that to come out too intense. So everything I'm doing, I'm being quite layered with. I'll just blot the excess off. Obviously, the other issue is that the paint is wet now, so it might be worthwhile almost kind of leaving it to dry. I'm just going to fan this out. I'll put a bit of that colour on the stem. And just get a bit of blue at the bottom. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the crimson into my blue mix, just at the top there. I'm just following those lines down. So obviously working with the watercolour in this way is quite free. It's very relaxing because you're just kind of working in a very expressive way. I've just added a little bit more blue there, and I just want to, again, I'm just layering this up. I've almost got like a sort of teal kind of coloured blue, so I'm just going to use the other blue in my selection, which is more kind of fake looking blue, but I need a bit of that. I'm just going to add a bit more of the purple mix. Again, quite watered down, but it's just adding that extra colour that I've not got yet from the ones that I've already got there. I can use some of that at the base as well. It's got this lovely kind of rainbow effect to it now. I want to add a bit just under here on the sides. And some of the details. I'm also going to add a bit of this blue. I know it's not on there, but this is what I quite like about when you do painting, and you can just kind of develop your painting to suit you and kind of what you're feeling at that time. Let's get a bit more of the ultramarine. Just build up this bit a bit more. And more defined just underneath the head there. So I'm just working in this kind of quite pure blue into this area. I could also use some of that blue on the top of the head as well. Let's add a bit more orange down here. Let's get that a bit thicker. So it's like through trial and error. And what's nice about working with a sketchbook is it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be this finished piece. But if you enjoyed this process of doing the poppy head, then you can go, well, actually, I'm going to make this into a final piece. I'm going to, stretch a canvas, or I'm going to do this as a painting. It's just about kind of being playful and experimenting, really. Just getting some water on there so blend it in a little bit more. I'm just going to dab that off slightly so it's not too wet. And let's add a bit more orange into here. And then what you can do is once this is dry, we could go over that with our fine liner. So that's something that I'll show you guys next week, of just working into your watercolor painting using fine liner, because if I do it onto this now, it's just going to all bleed, which is not the effect that I want. So sometimes it is about patience. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed that session. And yeah, so other things that you could do to your sketchbook is you could, if you wanted to, take some of your colour, and you could, you know, paint areas like so here, and then you could let that dry, and then again write over that as to what it was that we've painted, you know, again another poppy head, what it was that you're particularly interested in with poppies, so you can decorate it in a way that it is visually pleasing for you, and kind of like a lovely visual diary. So the Zoom session's at 9, so if anyone would like to join me for that, that would be great. Next week we will carry on looking at this idea of keeping a sketchbook and looking at some different seed heads. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed that, and I shall see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.